Hi there, and welcome to Chimp Chat, a podcast aimed at helping you get the very best from your Mailchimp account. Brought to you by those clever chimps at Chimp Answers, a Mailchimp Pro partner. Mailchimp email marketing is just what we do. Hello everybody, and welcome to Chimp Chats, where every week we give you the lowdown on how to get more from your email marketing and Mailchimp, along with keeping you updated on everything that's going on in the world of email marketing that we think that you need to be paying attention to. My name's Robin Adams, and I'm the owner of Chimp Answers, a specialist Mailchimp marketing agency. And today I'm joined by our delightful Mailchimp maestro, Vicky Glass. How are things going today, Vicky? Having a good week?
Yes, it's been a mixture of school holidays and trying to get ahead of client work because people are going on holiday. So yes, it's been busy, but also good.
Yeah.
How about you?
Pretty much the same, actually. I took a couple of days off a weekend or two ago, which seems like a long time ago. And I'm still catching up and things are busy at the moment. The world seems to have woken up over the past few months to email marketing. I don't know about you. I was speaking to another marketing agency a couple of days ago, and they were saying that they're trying to get ahead of the rush because they know as soon as school kicks back in and businesses kind of like are back in, they get to September, October, it's like, right, we've got to get started now again. And there's usually a bit of a rush. But surprisingly, I haven't seen much of a summer lull. Last couple of years there has been, but no, it's just been ongoing, hasn't it? I suppose, yeah. We shouldn't complain, should we? Right, okay, let's get going and get on to our question of the week. And this week we're going to be focusing on something that is actually relatively new, and I'm guessing not many of you out there are actually using, and that's Mailchimp Surveys. So we're going to talk about what they are, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how you can actually use them successfully in your business to really help moving things forward. So just to kick off, I think we all understand that the more you know about your customer, the people you speak to, your prospects, your target market, the better, as it were. So you can tailor your communication, you can focus your products and services on them, and pretty much everything that you say and do can be focused on the audience. But the thing is, when you say that you know your audience, do you really know your audience? I mean, I'm just talking about when you say, I'm pretty sure they do this or that, but do you really, really know? And I'm guessing, actually, like most businesses, you're basing knowledge probably more on gut feel. And I'm not saying you haven't got data to support, but there's conversations that you've had anecdotally with people. And so there is always the argument saying, well, actually, should you get more information? Can you get more information? Because I think we'll all agree that it'd be nice to have something a bit more solid to base our marketing assumptions on. And that's where surveys come in. Surveys are a fantastic way of capturing information about your audience, and also not even people in your audience at the moment, and getting feedback to improve your business. And if you're not using them, then you should really be looking into them, even if it's just using one or two questions to get feedback and insight. And the thing is, Mailchimp have made it really, really easy for you to do this. So let's take a look at the practical elements of Mailchimp surveys, and the things that you need to know to get yourself started. Okay. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that a Mailchimp survey is different to something that's called a Mailchimp poll. So, Vicky, start us off. What's a Mailchimp poll?
A Mailchimp poll is just a way to get a rating of a rating scale for a question, for example. So if you wanted a feedback, say, rate the event you just attended on a scale of 1 to 10, then you'd use a poll to do that. Whereas a survey is typically a question that people need to answer. Usually it could be, you give them the options already, or they need to type it in, but that's more of a question. Whereas a poll is just you give them a number and they choose a rating on a scale. And
I suppose
really it.
Yeah, I mean, fundamental difference from my point of view is the poll is something you put into the email and they can click a link in the email, whereas a survey is a link that takes them to a separate survey. So a poll is like a quick and dirty, hey, do you like this or that? Whereas a survey obviously is a lot more involved. Okay?
Yeah.
So polls one-off, surveys more involved. So on the basis of now focusing more on surveys, can you just, for those people who've never created a survey in Mailchimp, and I'm pretty sure, in fact, I'm almost positive that that's most of the people who's listening, if not all of the people listening, because I'll be honest, I've not met many, if any, just thinking about it now, people who've actually used Mailchimp surveys. Do you want to just walk through the process that people need to go through when they're creating a survey before we actually dive into tips and tricks and how you best can use them?
Yes, a survey is quite, or anything that's not email is really sometimes not that obvious in Mailchimp. So typically you go and click the create button or icon now they call it, and there you will see a campaign panel with lots of options. You click survey, and then you pick your audience from there, and there'll be a begin button where you start to add your questions. So you could add things like checkboxes, radio buttons. If you want people to choose options, you could have a big text box where people can type in their options. So all sorts of question types you can add onto your survey. And then you need to add whether people should give you their email address or not, which is quite crucial. And then you can style it however you like. You can design it. If you've got a flair for design, you can go crazy with this and make it look really nice. And once you're done with once you're happy with the questions and how it looks, you publish it, and then you get links that you can share outside of Mailchimp, or you can share it inside your campaign within Mailchimp. So yeah, you have options of where you can share your survey, and when people respond to your survey, you can go back into Mailchimp and you can see a report of all the responses and what people have said, and you can use that to obviously tailor your emails after that. So I think that's it. So yeah, going from creation to where you can see their answers in Mailchimp. It's not that complicated. It's fairly straightforward, but obviously you need to find out where it all is, and you also need to plan ahead. So you can't just go in and go, right, I want to do a survey, and then everything falls into place. So you need to pre-plan this. So yeah, but which might be a bit of a challenge for some people. Yeah. How do you find surveys? Do you think it's a
Yeah,
challenge for people?
I think surveys are brilliant. I think the biggest problem, and actually, it's a problem that you and I both encounter on a regular basis when we speak to people, whether it's people who've got questions in the Facebook group who want training or want us to actually do something. Invariably, they're trying to run before they can walk. They're like going, "Oh, look, Mailchimp surveys," and they dive in, they start the Mailchimp survey, and then they suddenly take a step back and go, "Actually, you know what? What exactly should I be actually doing? Should I be doing this type of stuff, that?" And I think it's the same with landing pages, with emails, creating automations. They get all excited about diving in without actually having a plan. And just because Mailchimp gives you a tool doesn't mean that you should jump in and create it. So making sure that you've got that clear understanding of what you're trying to do before you go in and start playing around with it is really, really important. Too many people forget that. All right. So now, hopefully you understand where Mailchimp surveys are kept and how you can use them. Ultimately, let's actually dig into that how and actually focus on some of the key things that you need to know about that can take your Mailchimp surveys from good to great. And the two things that I'm kind of like want to bring to the table, as it were, is first of all, that you can tag people. Now, a couple of months ago, you couldn't. This only actually came in, I think, about a month or two ago. But what this means is that you can actually send the survey to someone in your audience, and when they click on a specific answer, you can actually assign a tag based on that answer. So one of the big questions people have got is, how do you segment your audience? How do you decide whether, so for us, we work with two types of businesses. We work with agencies who want help with Mailchimp for their customers, and then we work with the actual end customers as well. So actually sending an email to someone straight away and saying, can you just let us know through a Mailchimp survey whether you're an agency or an actual business end user? And then when they click on that, it automatically tags them, which then means that in the future we can segment our communication to those two different audiences. That's really, really powerful. And for those businesses out there who are using Mailchimp and who want to segment, kind of like, I think we're speaking to a customer at the moment, a project we're working on halfway through at the moment, Vicky, where we've got someone who needs to segment between, have they purchased before or are they new? Now, if you're not capturing the information elsewhere, then that's probably a type of question that you can use, you can segment, you can tag people. And obviously by tagging them, that's actually data that's in the system. So it's not just stored in a report, it's actually assigned to the contact, which means you can use it. And that's, like I said, only last month or two that's come in. But it's actually, when you think about it, really powerful. and you can ask a series of questions. So again, I could focus on where someone is, how advanced they are, whether they use a free or a paid Mailchimp account. All of this information is useful that I want to know. And if I can target specific people, that makes a huge amount of difference. So surveys really, really powerful now, more so than they ever were before. And again, Mailchimp have done a really bad job of communicating the fact that you can tag people. And the second thing that they, again, don't really talk about much, but when actually is really, really quite important, is that you don't just have to send surveys to your existing audience. You can actually create a survey, chuck it up on Facebook, have people complete, and not only do they capture the information of what they've said, but you can actually add an email form and actually add people to actually put their email address in. And by completing that, they'll add themselves to your audience. So you can almost use a survey as a type of lead magnet to grow your audience. Now, obviously, you want to make sure that there is information about there that makes sure people understand they're signing up. Last thing you want to do is get people onto your audience who don't know they're going to be added to the audience. But again, something really, really powerful. And in both of those things, Vicky, are kind of like they take surveys, in my mind, to away from the old traditional, kind of like almost a clipboard and a checklist, as it were, but done on computer, and it really takes it to the next level.
Yes, I definitely agree. And the tagging is very, very useful. It's powerful. It's not just to get information from your audience or from people that haven't met yet. It's also adding that information to Mailchimp, and then you can use it in your future emails. So don't just collect data for the sake of it, but collect useful data that's actually can't say the word now, beneficial for you, so that you can use it and you can tailor your campaigns. And it's just amazing. It's mind blowing, really. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is the thing. We know every time there's people who collect data and don't use it.
Yes.
Tagging and automatically tagging people in this using Mailchimp surveys is a way of actually getting data, but automatically putting it into your system so that you can use. That's really, really powerful. Right, so now we know that you can do Mailchimp surveys and some of the cool things that you can actually do, tagging, whatever. Let's actually focus on some ways that you can use it. So each of us is going to come up with 3 different ways that we think that you would benefit from actually using a Mailchimp survey in your business. All right, so I'm going to take the back seat to start off with and let Vicky's kick us off. So where do you think the first thing that you should actually be using Mailchimp surveys is, Vicky?
I think it's right at the start. So, you typically have a simple sign-up form on your website asking for first name and your email address, and that's it. But obviously, it's useful to have more information, but you don't want to bombard them with questions at the very start. So once they've signed up, you send them an email to say, thank you for signing up and what have you. And then you ask them a simple question, tell me something else about you. So if it's a hotel, for example, you could say, thank you for signing up. Now, are you interested in couple breaks or family breaks or, animal breaks, whatever? But you used that initial contact to try and get more information from them. And that is very, very, very useful. And people are waiting for that first email from you. So they'll most likely respond at that stage as well. So yes, post sign up is a great place to start.
Fantastic. Really like that. Really like that. Okay, so I'll take one. Again, it's after someone's done something. And what I'm talking about here is actually post-purchase. So if you've got an e-commerce store connected up, or even if you haven't got an e-commerce store, but you're logging someone who's purchasing, and if you're not doing that, I'd really recommend that you do, because obviously you want to be able to send different messages to people who have bought from you to those who haven't bought from you. But if you've got an e-commerce store or something that allows you to track those purchases, actually sending a try saying that quickly 3 times. Post-purchase feedback and certificate. I can't even speak today. Oh, let's try that again. This is the problem with live. You go live and you stumble over your words. Okay, right. A post-purchase feedback and satisfaction survey. There you go. Got it all out. So essentially what would happen is that when someone purchases from you, you would automatically trigger an email that goes to them. And within that email would be a link to a survey that would ask people to answer a couple of questions. So, for example, you could actually ask them on a scale of 1 to 10 how happy they were with the service. Have they got any specific feedback on the purchase process, or the feedback, or how good customer service is, whatever. So all of those things are a great thing for you in terms of improving your improving your business, improving your processes. So you may not necessarily add this into the into the database as a tag or whatever, but it's really powerful to know how good you're doing. And because it's automated and it can be easily set up and all held in Mailchimp, it's dead easy to do. So if you have got an e-commerce store, then setting up a couple of 2 or 3 quick questions just so people can give you feedback and tell you how well you've done, that is really important, because because to be quite frank, the best people to tell you whether you have done a good job or not are the people who've actually bought from you, because they've gone through the full process, they've experienced it. So actually asking a question after they've purchased, and straight away after they've purchased, don't wait for 10, 15 days to do it because they'll have forgotten. Go back to them straight away and say, they really appreciate your being a customer of ours. It would be great if you could just give us a couple of answers to some questions so we can continually look at improving and making sure that we're doing a good job. Fire them off to the survey, a couple of questions, and before you know it, you've got some really useful information that can feed back into the business. So if you're not doing that, post-purchase feedback and satisfaction surveys, very, very powerful. Over to you, Vicky. What's your next one?
Well, sticking with the product team, I can't speak today. Theme. Yes. Another thing that you could do, another survey would be some sort of, asking how people found the product. So, the one you talked about was, how they found the purchase experience, how they found buying something from your shop. But you could also take this further and ask them how they're using the product, how they're finding the product. And that's quite a good way. So you can get good feedback. And you can even use that as a testimonial if it's good feedback, obviously. Use that for your social media. If people say, yes, I really loved it, you could ask them to, share their feedback on the socials and tag you. So that's a really good point to get feedback about your product. And obviously, if they dislike it, that's still a good opportunity. You could reply back and use that to engage with them. And that's always good engagement use where Mailchimp is concerned as well. So yes, after they've had the product from you and use it for a few days or weeks or however long you think they'll need to be able to give you good feedback on that, you send them an email, put a survey in there, ask them to give you a bit of feedback on it, and use that wherever you need to, if it's good feedback, obviously. So yes, I think, having a product feedback one is quite a good one. Definitely. I think we have one more from you, or was it?
Yeah, we've got a couple more from me. Stu, you've only done 2. I've done 1. I've got 2 more to go. Right, okay. Right. One of the things that we get regularly asked in the Facebook group is about location. And how reliable is the information about a location, about a person? All right, and it's something that I've always kind of like had a little bit of how should we say skepticism is the whole area of tracking your internet, your IP address, and using that to justify where someone is. Because nowadays, with kind of like there are things that will actually kind of like hide your location, other bits and pieces like that. I mean, it's never reliable to start off with, and the longer it goes, the less reliable it becomes. The number of people who kind of like sign up to my database who says they're from America, and I know they're not from America. It's just the way it is. So actually knowing where someone is something that you can use in your marketing. And again, that's something that you can ask from a survey point of view. I'll give you an example, something that we've done in the past. We do a lot of training, and when we do training, sometimes we do it face-to-face, actually in person, back when you could actually meet people without having to wear a mask or whatever, or we do it over distance. Now, personally, I love doing the face-to-face training when I'm in someone's office, actually on their computer, talking with someone. That's really powerful. But it's pointless as offering that service to someone who's based in Europe or America, because physically, unless they're going to pay for extra, kind of like airfares to actually get us back and forth, it's not something that we're going to be able to actually do. So sending emails out talking about face-to-face in-person training, it's not really worthwhile, because those people are not going to be interested. So if I can actually find out where someone is based, if they're based in the UK, then I can sell them the basis of face-to-face. But if they're not, then I can talk about distance training. And that's where a Mailchimp survey, again, will allow me to segment my audience and actually go, those people over there are based in the UK because they've ticked the UK box in the survey. Those people aren't. And as a consequence, we can tailor the communication. So if you're in a business where, and nowadays the world is becoming a much smaller place with, the internet and Zoom being so commonplace. I think what's happened with the whole, last 18 months of the pandemic is that Zoom has just become, people are so used to working on Zoom now that, the almost location is less relevant. But for some people with their shipping or other bits and pieces, it does make a difference. So capturing your location of your customers is going to be something that will be really useful. And again, you can use the tagging function to tag your audience. Cool. So back to you, Vicky, for your last one.
My last one, I think I'll go with an event feedback. Obviously, with the pandemic, you used to have, as you said, you used to have in-person events or in-person courses where you run them in person, but now things are moving online, and gathering feedback for things that you run, whether in person or online, is really invaluable. So obviously, if you want to keep running the same event over and over again, you need to improve that. You can't just, have it static, which is where the feedback comes in. So after you finish your event, you send an email to those that attended and ask them how they found it. Ask them a series of questions that will help you improve your next one, and just also help you not, if you've tried something new, that's a good time to get feedback to see if it worked or not. So, if you were staring at a screen of people just nodding or not asking questions, that's a good chance for you to find out why they didn't ask any questions, or why they didn't raise their hand, or whether they found it engaging or not engaging. So yes, after an event, asking for feedback using a survey is really, really good, and it will help you improve your future ones as well. So you're not just churning the same format over and over again.
Exactly.
Yes.
No. That's really, really good idea, and something that people should do. And again, it's not necessarily something that you're going to use to tag your database with, but it's really useful information to have. And if you're in an events-based business, getting that feedback is very, very valuable. And if you've got their email addresses because they've registered for Eventbrite or whatever tool that you use, and you're communicating with them, bottom line is the more information you can get, the better. So yeah, brilliant idea of doing that. Right, the last one I'm going to chuck in is actually, alluded this to earlier, and that's actually using a survey as a lead magnet. So hopefully you all understand the concepts of a lead magnet, the idea of offering something of value in return for someone's email address so they can get onto your database. Now, obviously, you've seen lots of people out there who've used surveys in a variety of different ways. But one of the ways that you could do is actually use this to gather information from your particular target audience, but have an email capture process as part of that. So the people who actually complete the survey are being added back into your database, and as a consequence can be marketed to down the track. Now, like I said previously, you've got to be careful. You can't just add people willy-nilly. You've got to actually be able to tell people that they are being added to your database. You don't want to just kind of like add them automatically. But again, there's lots of creative ways that you can come up with a little survey to gather information, to understand. And the people who, I'm just thinking a nursery. If a nursery was to put a social media post out saying, what matters to you when it comes to picking your nursery? And actually asked 4 or 5 questions and said, kind of like, how important is the location and parking? How important is the Ofsted rating or whatever rating there is for that nursery, of whether they're good or whatever? And, kind of like facilities, staff ratios, other bits and pieces like that. Really useful to get some information, even pricing. How much would you pay for a, kind of like a spot at a good nursery, as it were, and use that to actually tailor it. But obviously, people who fill that in, they're in your target market, because to be quite frank, I can tell you, I'm not going to be filling that survey in because I don't have any kids, which means that I'm not interested. But certainly, Vicky, for you, childminding, that type of stuff, that's a way that you would actually probably fill that in, because you've got an interest in that particular area. And I think it's so easy for people to, how should we say, not embrace the concept of building their audience at times. They just put their newsletter form on the website and fingers crossed someone's going to sign up. You've actually got to give someone a hook. You've got to actually tie them in. And I think using some form of lead capture process would be really, really helpful. And using a Mailchimp survey to do that, I think that's something that, people should definitely be playing around and considering. And if you do it correctly, can really kind of like, broaden your horizons. Even if it's just understanding your market, even if you're not using it from a lead capture point of view, you're still getting valuable information. Okay, so lots of things that you can do there with surveys. We've given you a number of ideas, but one thing that I know one or two of you are thinking is, well, hang on a minute, Mailchimp isn't the only survey tool out there, so why should I use Mailchimp over one of the other bits and pick one of the tools out there? So there are tools, you can use Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, Typeform. Now, the key thing, and I was doing a little bit of research, and Mailchimp are very good. They provide some kind of like background of what makes Mailchimp better or as good as some of the other tools there. And the thing here is that if you're going to go for big surveys, so if you're using a big fully survey, then there are tools out there that are very, very effective to actually use. But for a lot of people who use Mailchimp, who are using Mailchimp on the free plan, there are no limits. So if you go to SurveyMonkey and Typeform, both of those tools have limits on their free plan. So there's a limit of questions, a limit of number of responses, or whatever. Whereas in Mailchimp, there's no limits. You can create as many surveys as you can want. You can ask information that you've got for your database. That's really, really powerful as well. So if you're using Mailchimp at the moment, you can connect everything up. So even if you're on your free plan, you can still get masses of benefits from doing some form of survey. Okay, so all round, basically, Mailchimp's a really valuable tool. And I know that I've used it once or twice in the past. But actually going through this process, learning and actually picking up some of the new things at Mailchimp. And I say Mailchimp don't really do a very good job of communicating some of these things because they've got so many things to talk about. It's actually really powerful that, kind of like you can dig in. And I'm already thinking of lots of things that I think that certainly I can use. And I'm going to suggest to some of my clients of what they can do with surveys. So to wrap up on surveys, very, very powerful, easy to do. Ideal for tagging existing audiences and great for grabbing new contacts. Anything that I've missed, Vicky?
No. Oh, well, I think you've covered quite a lot. Right. What can I think of? Tagging. Well, I think I mentioned already, don't go overboard with the tagging. And the last thing you want is to just have a database full of tags and no idea what they do. And if you're going to use the tagging quite extensively, have a naming system so that you know what they mean and what they stand for. I think so. I think that's all I have to add. I mean, I've got loads of other ideas, like, don't have too many survey questions, but I think that'll probably come when you're building out your survey. So other than that, I think we've given people a lot to get started, to get playing with surveys in Mailchimp.
Definitely. I'm frozen at the moment. You can hear me, but my camera's frozen for some unknown reason, which is fascinating. But you're right. So I'll just carry on so people can still hear me. I think there's two things that I do. One, plan it. Planning's really important. And two is start. How often do we say with these things, the best way to do with these type of things is to start. So just pick something. So do a 1 or a 2 question post sign up survey, or if you've got a e-commerce store, do a 1 or 2 question post purchase survey. Just start with that, dip your toe in the water, and you'll be surprised at what you can actually achieve. I think it's really, really powerful. Cool. Right. Okay. So that wraps up Mailchimp surveys, and hopefully we've given you a load of stuff that you can actually use straight away and start playing around with things. So as usual, we'll now dive into the Facebook group and answer a specific question that popped up. And this is quite good because it kind of like almost precedes what we're going to be talking about in next week's Chimp Chat. So question came in the group from Umar Hayat, who basically asked, "Hi everyone, Mailchimp have asked me to provide proof of email collection method. How do I sort out this issue? Help needed." So what do you think, Vicky? What are your thoughts?
Well, yes. It's always an interesting one because it's one of those ones where you definitely need more information to go on based on just that sentence. But assuming we don't have any, then the first thing would be to find out how you got that data, and then go back to the source and find out whether they explicitly gave permission at that point, or whether it was just some sort of data that you had lying around. So firstly, go back to where the data was obtained and see if there was any sort of, inkling of permission, any sort of saying, yes, I want to be added, or they sort of verbally give a nod or something. And then from then on, you then have something to work with. And if you don't have that, then yes, you're probably going to struggle in that area.
Yeah, no, could agree more, Vicky.
Yeah.
You need to, kind of like you need to, just for reference, just because Mailchimp asked this question of you, doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong.
Mm.
Mailchimp obviously are very protective because they don't want to send emails to people who haven't got permission because they'll unsubscribe, and that's bad news for Mailchimp. So in actual fact, don't kind of like if Mailchimp asks you this question, you've not necessarily done something wrong. Okay. In fact, I had a client recently. They're a real estate client in America, and Mailchimp are very hot on real estate because real estate
Yeah.
agents not necessarily have got the best reputation when it comes to using data. Okay, they tend to add a lot of data, or they've got proof. Mailchimp obviously looked at this. They'll just add data willy nilly. And we're working with some
Mm.
real estate agents, and they've got their data, and they've got it from people who have actually opted in, who've given permission to communicate. And all Mailchimp was doing was saying, can we just double check to make sure this is
Mm.
kosher, this is above board, because we know lots of real estate agents out there, it's not above board. They haven't done it. So Mailchimp were just covering their backside, as it were, and protecting themselves. And as a consequence, we just went back and said, yep, we gave them examples of where we captured the
Yeah.
forms that we're using, how we were doing it. And they were like, yep, that's great. Thanks for letting us know.
Mm.
Not a problem at all. So if Mailchimp are asking, they're asking for a valid reason. And as long as
Yeah.
you are being ethical and above board with what you're doing, then shouldn't really be any problems at all. And like I said, this is something we're going to talk about next week. We're going to dive into the whole ethics of email capture and GDPR and other things like that, privacy. So we'll be touching on that next week. Okay, right. So that kind of
Mm.
like, hopefully that gives you a good answer, Emma. And anyone else who's in the Facebook group, if you've got any questions or queries, things that you want to get answers to, please feel free to post them in the group and let us know so that we can actually address them in these videos and these podcasts. Okay, so with that in mind, let's dive into just have a quick look in the world of email. And Vicky, anything caught your eye this week?
Yes, I'm in a very active Facebook group called Women of Email, obviously. And yeah, someone posted that they got this personalized email from a company that actually made them buy more. So they bought something, and then on there, the company then emailed them with products suggestions that went with what they bought. So complementary products with what they've just bought, and that made them buy more. And then there was just like lots of examples of where people have done this and received emails like this, and it was just a really good thread to read. So yes, it just got me thinking about ways I could try and not necessarily upsell, because it was done in a more subtle and nicer way. So it's like, you've just bought this, we think these would go well with that, and that was just quite a nice touch. And I think I have lost Robin on my
No, I'm
screen.
still here. I'm still here. I'm just
Oh,
bouncing
okay.
around. I'm just
So
trying to.
yes, that
I'm just trying to. My camera is frozen now, so from that point of
okay.
view, I'm trying to work out. I was just trying to get it sorted. But if you listen on the podcast, you're going, well, I can't see you, Robin, so it doesn't really matter anyway. So no, that's great, and that's it. You take inspiration from the emails. We're all on the people's email lists, so
Mm.
make sure that you're taking inspiration from other people and actually getting their. If they've done a good email, kind of like imitation, sincerest form of flattery. Go for it.
Yeah.
Use it. If you can do something like that, bring that in. For me, I'm going to go Mailchimp, as it were, and it's just something that a lot of people have. What's it? Mailchimp are great at doing stuff. They're coming up with new ideas. They're always going forward. The one thing
Mm.
they're not so good at times is when they change something, they probably don't realise when they change it how many people it's going to impact and affect. I know, strange thing to say, love Mailchimp to bits, but they're not perfect. And in the last week or so, they're really starting to get people to want to use customer journeys. Okay,
Mm.
so customer journeys, big part. I've just in the process of finalising the biggest set of customer journeys I've ever worked on. I think there's 64 different
Mm.
individual automations that are all connected and linked up and whatever. And I love customer journeys. But a lot of people haven't embraced customer journeys yet. They much prefer using classic automations, which is the old style of customer journeys, it were. And the problem is that Mailchimp have kind of like made it a little bit harder to actually find
Mm.
where classic automations are. So if you're a classic automation person and you only want to create them in theirs, then you can't necessarily find it as easily as you could have done. what you actually need to do now is, if you want to create them, you need to go into your either create a new customer journey, or click on customer journeys in the yellow toolbar on the left hand side, and then you'll have the option of create a new option, but you'll also see a tab that is called explore. If you click explore, in the top right it will say, if you want to create a classic automation, click here. So if you're struggling to find where those classic automations are, they're still valid, they're still live in your account. It's just because Mailchimp are pushing people to use customer journeys more, they're just hidden a little bit in the background. So you've got to actually, kind of like download. So don't worry if you can't find them, they are there. They're just hidden away a little bit. And it's certainly something that Mailchimp have brought in, but haven't necessarily communicated as effectively as I'd like to have thought they would have done. So this is a public service announcement for everyone out there. Brilliant. So, hope you guys find that useful. Vicky's still just waiting for me to my video to reappear. I'm still frozen, but you can still hear me, so that obviously works. So, Vicky, any last thoughts about today's chat? Anything that you just want to kind of like pick up on, or get people to consider in terms of Mailchimp surveys or anything we've talked about?
I think, like you said, just start using it and try and be clever a bit about how you use it. So don't just send surveys after survey after survey to people. So make it come after an action that they've done, so it's more natural. So if they've just signed up, you can send them an email with a survey, or they've just bought something. So don't just randomly email surveys every week or so, but let it be after something that they've just done and it's personalized. So not just your whole list, unless you have to, but those sort of personalized survey options after they've just done something is an amazing way to interact and engage with your audience. How about you?
I think just go and do it. Just do it. We sit here and we talk about how great these things are, and yet the fact of the matter is that they're only great if you use them. If you don't use them, then they ain't great. They're just sitting there. It's another asset, another benefit that you're not taking advantage of. And I think we can all agree, the more we know about our audience, the better. And this is a great way of capturing. So just pick, like I said, I focused on two things. Either a post-purchase survey saying, were we any good or not? Or a post-sign-up survey saying, do you like us more for this type of thing or for this type of thing? Use that information, because you'll be actually surprised the information you can capture and how useful it's going to be. So, just do it. Just go and do it, guys. This is really, really useful. Brilliant. So just remember, you can always catch up on previous episodes on Facebook and YouTube or whatever platform you get your podcasts from. Those of you who are listening on podcasts, sorry, banging on about video. I know you're not benefiting, but the video is still frozen. So Vicky's still there moving around, where I'm kind of like in a very pensive look on my face. Next week, we're going to be talking about something that everyone needs to be aware of when it comes to email marketing, and that's privacy. We're going to be talking about GDPR, ethical marketing, what you need to be doing. Now, just for reference, when we get into this, neither me or Vicky are lawyers, so we're not going to be going into this is what you should do, but we're going to give certainly our opinion on what we think is the right way to go about email marketing, and some of the things that you should do and some of the things that you should try and avoid. So make sure that you tune in for that. But for now, thanks, Vicky, as ever, for being the visual element of this podcast. Thanks everyone else for watching or listening wherever you are, and if you've got questions, remember, go to the Chimp Answers Facebook group and post them there and you'll get answers. Vicky's always in there answering questions. I haven't been able to get in the last couple of days, but every time I go in, I look at the questions and I go, oh, Vicky's answered that, Vicky's answered that, Vicky's answered that. So make sure you've got any questions, chuck them into the Facebook group. We'll do our best to answer them. But for now, thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch up with you very soon indeed. Bye for now.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast really helpful, then here's what you can do next to broaden your understanding of Mailchimp. You can join our free Facebook group. It's the biggest Mailchimp support group in the world. Just search Mailchimp Answers on Facebook. You can take our free Mailchimp Medical to find out the health of your Mailchimp account and what you can do to improve it. Just visit chimpanswers.com and follow the prompts. And of course, you can get in touch with us if you like one-to-one support, advice, tips, or whatever. Just visit chimpanswers.com, which also has got one of the largest resources of Mailchimp blogs and advice available out there to get the information that you need. Thanks again, and we'll see you very soon.